we decided we're going to talk a few times a week, kind of in between when we send out emails and various stuff for the church. And I took a walk the other day with one of the guys from the church, and I've been noticing, and I don't know if I just never noticed this before, but I see little mini whiskey bottles when I take walks, like everywhere. I mean, do you ever notice this? Like the little tiny whiskey bottles? I walk a lot. I don't know.
Yeah. We don't see a lot of tiny whiskey bottles in my neighborhood. I think
Yeah.
I think when they drink drink alone. They seem like alone people.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
think we're going to get to that. Yeah. Well, I've been noticing a ton of them, and I bought some of those little tiny whiskey bottles because they were cheaper recently, and I was making a pie. And I was like, man, how are these? I get more in these little bottles than I get in the big one, but it's cheaper. And so I was like, sweet. So I bought them, and then I've started to see them sitting around everywhere. I'm like, oh man, people like they sell these little tiny bottles because people need these to cope, and like people are drinking these way too much.
Excessively.
And
I would say like addiction right now, addiction in a time of uncertainty and fear it's gonna increase drastically.
Right. Yeah, Michaela, my wife, was at the store and she was talking about how, people had these full carts, but she was like, they had a lot of alcohol. Like, of all things, that money's tight, we're trying to get toilet paper, but a lot of alcohol. And so, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Just as things are people are getting stressed, and this is maybe this is something our people are going through. And I don't want to just talk about alcohol, but more like how do we deal with our anxiety, basically.
I think that's a good question to ask.
Yeah. So we're not the type of church that abstains from alcohol or anything. We've never said that, but we don't think it should be a crutch, and we don't think it should be something you worship or lean on. So I don't know. What do you when you think of this, like managing anxiety and what you want our people to think about and consider, what crosses your mind?
Yeah, I think, well, I have a couple thoughts off the top of my head, but the first thing would be the first person who exhibited fear in scripture was Adam after he had broken relationship with God. Like after he rebelled, after him and Eve rebelled, you have this they're hiding from God and they're scared. And there was a relationship feeling transition that happened there. And so I think one of the things that I want to recognize right off the bat is God is not a God of fear. And so to continually go back to our loving Father who wants us and who wants to care for us and wants to move us through this peacefully and joyfully and in love. So we can go to him, or we can go to the father of all lies and live in fear. So immediately I want to say, like, I recognize there's a spiritual aspect to this. This isn't just like only viral. The prince of the power of the air is at work. Like Satan's at work and he's making people scared. The second thing is when we are anxious, we tend to lean on the things that bring us most comfort. What do you do every day that brings you comfort? So you're going to find that increased in specific areas of your life. So if we're talking about alcohol, in time of uncertainty, like if I can take the edge off of this, like that'll really calm me down. That'll make me feel better. So the increase in alcohol sales makes a ton of sense to me.
Yeah.
What I found personally, what we've done, actually even today is a good example. Like I woke up, fed the kids, and I listened to 2 sermons while I was painting Rosie's room, and then listened to some more sermons while I was trimming some trees and getting some work done, and game planning for the salon, and just looking at what is my normal daily routine. How do I spend my time here wisely? And so, like last night, I was able to finish a book that I've been working on, reading. Not writing another book. That'd be cool. That'd be a really, really cool pastor. I'm not that cool. And so really pressing into what brings you comfort that is glorifying to God. And then really, how are you viewing culture right now? Like the society, are you saying I'm walking with a loving Father, or are you saying I'm giving myself over to fear? And then how do you use that routine as you walk with the Father to deepen and strengthen your walk in him?
An interesting thing, even in that, bringing up kind of the fall, the time in Genesis that you're talking about, is that Adam and Eve, they hid, right? That was how they managed their fear, their anxiety, as they hid. And I mean, I think alcohol can be a form of hiding. It's it can numb the pain, but also is kind of like, if I don't have to think about it, then it just doesn't exist. It's kind of like the ostrich that sticks its head in the sand kind of thing.
Yeah.
At least it doesn't exist for a little bit, which helps. But of course, when you think about just hiding, that doesn't seem so bad, right? But it's the same. It's the same issue that Adam and Eve had, where they just hid themselves from God, and it led to, did it mitigate their anxiety? No, it really didn't. Maybe temporarily. And so there are a number of ways, I would assume, that we can hide. We can hide behind, things I hide behind. I hide behind my sense of humor. I hide behind, I've learned how to come across as competent. Sometimes I choose not to a lot, but I can if I need to. I hide behind busyness. So I would assume if those who are listening to us, if we gave them a second, could think through the ways that we hide.
Yeah, are you binge watching shows right now? Are you playing a lot more video games than normal? Are you, what ways are you trying to shut out reality around you? That's the question. And then I would even pair that with not only what ways you're trying to shut out reality and hide, but where are you finding that you're doing really good right now? Because the switch up of a routine is surely going to bring something new to light. You're like, man, I'm actually pretty good at whatever, being peaceful or not. And so I think, looking at those two things would be really important right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to pull this up and just read a little portion of the 91st Psalm. And this was, I'm not going to read it all just because of time, but it has this, it'll probably be read by some other folks because there are, sections in here about pestilence and stuff like that. Let's see.
Is that a motorcycle?
Cool motorcycle, yeah.
Yeah.
Or a Honda Civic. It's really hard to say. Let's see.
Yeah, really could be anything.
Psalm 91:3. For he, God, will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the deadly pestilence. He'll cover you with his pinions. Under his wings you'll find refuge. His faithfulness is a shield and a buckler. You will not fear the terror of the night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in darkness, nor the destruction that wastes at noonday. An interesting thing about that is it's a messianic psalm, which means it ends up, referring forward to Jesus. And if you think about Jesus himself, he was betrayed and he was killed, and it was a terrible situation. And then the believers who read this kind of stuff, before Jesus came, went through all sorts of trials, and the believers that read this psalm after Jesus left went through all sorts of trials, including plagues and famines. And so when you read that and God's protection from that, what we see in Jesus on the cross is not that God didn't put him through some hard stuff, but that he was able to withstand the stuff in hope. And I wonder if sometimes in church we've accidentally given people a false hope that everything's just going to be okay.
Right.
And in giving them that false hope, it's super disappointing when something like COVID-19 hits or a financial crisis hits. Whereas if we told them, the Jesus who had to look back on this psalm and remember it, and all the other believers, they weren't told that the pestilence wasn't going to touch them or wasn't going to make things hard. They were just told that they were going to be upheld by God through it.
Yeah.
And I think when you do that, you don't have to take the edge off your pain or hide or manage it. You can kind of face realities and, live through it, and it's going to be okay. You're doing a super good job as a dad over there, by the way.
Yeah, I'm killing it. This is a cactus without needles. It's very cute. And if you look at her face, Claire, show your face. It's just covered in mud right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, soil,
Don't
dirt.
grab the real cactus though.
No, yeah, that's an ouch, huh? All right.
Anyway, those are my thoughts. I mean, I definitely have, I'm by no means like killing it at this. I've got my anxieties too, and I'm trying to figure out a lot of stuff, but I hope that we as a church can, learn to anchor ourselves in Christ, and anything that we use to hide, anything we use to manage our anxieties, that we would look at those together.
Yeah.
Renounce
Yeah,
them.
for me, the slowness of life right now is like busyness you mentioned earlier. Like that's a great way for me to hide. So the slowness of what's going on has been very frustrating for me.
Yeah.
But it's also given me the ability now to like spend more time with the kids, and we get to play outside together. And so I'm looking at like, man, I've got a problem in hiding, but I'm also being gifted something right now that I just normally don't get. And so
Yeah.
I think, man, moving forward and seeing the gifts that God is giving us in all this is a really cool thing.
Yeah. It's complicated because it's not all a gift, but but we don't want to miss what God's doing, right?
Right. Yeah.
All right, well, we can sign off because we've used up our allotted time, and so thanks everybody for listening to our ramblings, and we'll do this again in a couple days.
Bye. Claire, say bye. Wait, did you poop?